So apologies to keep you waiting. So just as a reminder, so these will be quite quick, 2 minutes. And we'll start off with So-Woon Jeong.
Hi, my name is So-Woon Jeong, and today I'll present our project on studying the effect of GNN spatial convolutions on the embedding spaces geometry. So a little bit of motivation first. Graph has become ubiquitous across a wide variety of applications, and thus graph neural networks are becoming the preferred framework for dealing with graph structured data. And one of the crucial ingredients of GNN is the spatial convolutions. This spatial convolution allows us to integrate the source node information across its neighbor, and thus creating the powerful node embedding. Yet, in the light of the huge number of convolutions out there in the literature, what is the right choice of the convolutions? This is the question we're trying to answer. So we propose summarizing the existing convolutions by introducing these two families. First is the symmetric convolutions. Second is the row normalized convolutions. Using these two families, we show that empirically and analytically that the choice of convolution actually drives the embedding geometry. First, it affects the performance of any downstream task out there, like node classification task and so on. In this example, using Cora, we see that for symmetric convolutions in particular, the choice of alpha really drives the prediction accuracy. To explain this phenomena, we perform the theoretical analysis, which allows us to characterize the organization of embedding space as a function of node degree and the choice of convolutions. If you're interested, please come visit the poster session. Thank you.
Thank you, So-Woon. So next is Sakshi Agarwal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sakshi Agarwal from the University of California, Irvine, and I'm here to present our work on query-adaptive variational inference. Variational autoencoders are probabilistic generative models that use an encoder phi to map high-dimensional data X to low-dimensional latent space Z, inducing a variational posterior over it. Once we sample from this posterior, we can pass Z through a decoder to reconstruct this original sample X. Post-training such a VAE, we are interested in the task of filling missing features XM when some features are observed in the data XO. Traditional probabilistic models are experts at handling such a task, but if you take this pre-trained encoder off the shelf, it has only seen fully observed data X, and hence it's not equipped to be used directly for such a task. We, in our work, propose QAVI that defines a variational posterior over both the latent space variable Z and the missing variable XM, and optimize it using the standard variational objective. Once we factorize it in a way where Z is the latent variable and the missing variable XM depends on it, we can completely ignore this pre-trained encoder for the inference task. QAVI also supports more expressive posteriors like mixture, flows, hierarchical distributions in the latent space, apart from just the Gaussian. And here we show some results comparing QAVI with the best performing baseline from our paper. And we see that it not only captures valid imputations, but can also capture uncertainty in the missing variable, shows higher log likelihoods, better FIDs, and can be easily extended to hierarchical VAs. Please stop by our poster to know more about the work or even look at some fun in paintings. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Sakshi. Next is Argenis Arios.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Argenis, and I'm happy to present some of our work in Bayesian inference approach for entrepreneurial large reinforcement learning with stochastic dynamics. And right, let us consider the random variable tau, which represents an episode trajectory distribution. And it's formed by the sequence of state action tuples that are within that trajectory. With that, the objective function for the entrepreneurial reinforcement learning is written like this. And you can see the objective function seeks to maximize the rewards while minimizing deviations from the prior trajectory distributions. And to write this problem in a causal inference way, we need to introduce these optimality variables. And with that, the posterior distribution for the trajectories from which the policies of interest are extracted can be written as a Boltzmann distribution, just like this. And for problems with the deterministic dynamics, this produces correct results. But for the case of stochastic dynamics, it turns out that the posterior transition dynamics is different from the prior transition dynamics. That basically means that the posterior transition dynamics is just different from the problem's transition dynamics. And this produces policies that are ultimately optimistic and suboptimal. So in previous research, it has been shown that the posterior transition dynamics needs to satisfy the following equation. And then the question is, can we leverage this knowledge to find correct solutions for the stochastic dynamics case? The answer is yes. And then we find the biases, the relations that the biases needs to satisfy, and use that information to develop an algorithm that solves for these biases and ultimately solve the stochastic dynamics problems. So please come visit our poster and we can talk more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Aras. Next, we have Oliver Richardson.
Hi, so this is joint work with Joe Halpern and Chris Dessau. This paper shows how to do inference in a new class of models called probabilistic dependency graphs, which I've been working on. It's sort of a general foundational unifying model for a lot of probabilistic reasoning. So on the one hand, it's kind of like a graphical model. It generalizes Bayesian networks. You take just a directed hypergraph where you attach probabilities to all of the arcs. So as opposed to the nodes, you attach them to the arcs. And as a result of this, you could end up with something like this in the middle where you've got two arcs pointing to the same variable. You attach probabilities, and if they're different, then this is not consistent. So you can measure how inconsistent a probabilistic dependency graph is in a nice information theoretic way. So in addition to being a graphical model, also gives you this measure of inconsistency. And this measure of inconsistency turns out to be some kind of universal loss function. If you're modeling your learning situation appropriately, you basically always get back the loss function you would have wanted to use. So if you have a variational autoencoder, so you've got a prior, an encoder, and a decoder, and some data, you measure the inconsistency, you get the elbow. And then this happens all over the place. So these are probabilistic dependency graphs, but then there's a problem. As a graphical model, the previous work didn't show how to do inference in it. And as a loss function, it's great, except you can't calculate it. So this work addresses both problems at once. So the bad news is inference is NP hard. Yeah, it captures Bayesian networks, so that's expected. And calculating the inconsistency, even if you just wanted to know the number, is no easier. So you can get a linear time reduction from calculating inconsistency to inference. But the good news is in the one class of models where we can tractably do inference in graphical models, those that have bounded tree width, the ones that look like trees, we have a proof that you can do it in polynomial time, O of n to the fourth. Belief propagation is linear. We also have an efficient implementation and validation that it works faster and more accurately than baselines.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Oliver. Up next, Daniel.
Hello, my name is Daniel Andrade, and I would like to present our work on robust Gaussian process regression with the trimmed margin likelihood. And before starting, let us reflect on what is actually an outlier. So, and that depends on our modeling assumptions. So if you assume a linear model, so on the left-hand side, then clearly we would have an outlier from these 6 data points. But on the right-hand side, the same 6 data points, assuming in a nonlinear model, like a Gaussian process regression, there might be no outlier. So here, the simple observation is that fixing our model. So what are the data points that best match our model assumptions? So in particular, we want to maximize our marginal likelihood. Given a fixed model, we want to find this set of data points that maximize the marginal likelihoods. And this way we can separate into inliers and outliers. So to make this idea more concrete, we need to make some more assumptions. So first of all, in general, evaluating the marginal likelihood is difficult. So I assume here Gaussian process regression. And the second is we need to make some assumptions about the number of outliers. In particular, we need an upper bound on the number of outliers. And with that, we can then try to find what is our subset. So the inliers that maximize this marginal likelihood. But still, so even for the Gaussian process regression, we can evaluate the marginal likelihood, but it's cubic. And so even if we use a simple greedy algorithm, that's actually pretty computational difficult if our data points become large. So here, one major contribution is to propose an efficient projected gradient descent algorithm with some approximations. And the results are pretty encouraging. And one key insight is that you can get different types of outliers with compared to standard methods like student T likelihood, which might give you new insights, which you might have overlooked before. Thank you. Please come by.
And next up is Ali.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to present our work on inference and sampling of point processes from diffusion excursions. This is with my collaborators, Yuting, Mohamed, Anderson, and Vahid. And so point processes model the collection of events over certain spaces. In particular, we're going to be focusing on temporal point processes, which model the arrival of different events over time. Sometimes these events are caused by some underlying continuous process. And what may be interesting is to try to figure out what this underlying continuous process is that generated the events that we observed. And so some example applications are in spike trains in neuroscience, where we generate spike trains based on some underlying stimulus that's known to generate the spike trains, or in healthcare, where a patient's arrival into a clinic signals some underlying disease that they might have, or in finance, where you have bids and asks in the market, and these are based on some underlying true price that might be generating the bids and asks. And so what we want to do is we want to decompose these into a diffusion process. And the idea behind the paper is we develop estimators and sampling algorithms for accomplishing this from data. And so if you're interested, please come to the poster. This is kind of an application in the neuroscience setting where we recover stimulus from the point process observations. So thank you very much.
And last but not least, we have Matteo.
So hello, everyone. My name is Matteo, and I'm here to talk to you about aligned diffusion Schrödinger bridges. So many words in the title. Let's try to break this down. So first of all, what is a Schrödinger bridge? You may be familiar with diffusion, which basically involves taking a data distribution, corrupting it into noise and learning to reverse the process. Schrödinger bridges, they're kind of a generalization of that. And they involve learning a process P that transforms any data distribution mu0 into any other non-necessarily isotropic Gaussian data distribution mu1. So this is an interesting problem, but it has a big limitation, meaning that it discards all the information that we know about specific elements in the population, and it only works at the big population level. So it discards these like blue arrows that we may know about the fate of a specific element in the population. So our idea is to basically solve Schrödinger bridges by also incorporating this problem, this additional information that we have about specific elements. And the reason why we do this, you basically see it on a toy dataset here. So we have an initial distribution. This is the blue one, mu0. The final one is the mu0. The final one is the red one, is mu1. If we solve a standard Schrödinger bridge, we basically get the dynamics that is on the left, bottom left. But if we also know that we observe some pairings, the black arrows in the center, we actually wanna know that while we compute a Schrödinger bridge, and with our algorithm we can, and we basically obtain the dynamics that is on the right, which agrees with the observation. We also applied our algorithm on cells and protein docking. If you want to know more, just come by the posters. Thank you.
Thank you, Matteo. Okay, so that's it for the poster spotlights. So next we'll have a coffee break, and then at 4:30 we'll have the poster session. Thank you very much.